Welcome to our channel, Behind My Story. Please like, share, and subscribe.
One nice thing about success is seeing all your friends and family being so proud of you and your accomplishments. This mutual respect and appreciation is what real friendship is all about. My story is about success and friendship, and also when two friends become incompatible and no longer go hand in hand. My name is Sherry, and I'm 21 years old. I had a friend named Margot. She wasn't just my friend. She was my best friend. My sister. She meant the world to me. We were alike in so many ways. Even in our hobbies, our dreams. After my dad's death, Mom and I moved to Margot's neighborhood, since her mom was my mom's best friend. I was only 3 years old at the time, so Margot and I practically grew up together. At school, we shared the same classes, studied together, and even partnered as lab partners. She and I both aspired to become pharmacists. I struggled through high school, but made it through with Margot's support and encouragement. I didn't have as much freedom and independence as she did, because my mom was too overprotective of me. It was at this point that my story really began. When I decided to join the Faculty of Pharmacy, Margot asked me why I chose that major, and I told her that my dad had died of a malignant disease that had no cure, so it was my dream to find a cure for it, to save lives. I studied hard and successfully enrolled in the Faculty of Pharmacy. Margot was very happy for me, and she promised to keep me focused on discovering that cure for Dad's fatal disease that I so passionately sought. I asked her to stay by my side the whole time, and she was happy to do so. The Faculty of Pharmacy was located abroad, so outside my country. I would be independent, free of Mom's smothering control. Frankly, I looked forward to it. Margot and I found a place to stay near the faculty, at a youth hostel with a group of girls from different countries. Unlike me, Margot was able to easily make friends with them. Our studies weren't easy at first, but we worked hard and muddled through. I was so excited to delve into my research and learn as much as I could. I queried instructors and doctors constantly to expand my knowledge. This was my beginning, and Margot stood by me the whole time. Eventually, we graduated from the faculty and launched our careers. I started at one pharmaceutical company, while she started at another. We were now competitors of a sort. In preparation for my private research, I rented a flat near my company. Margot did the same near hers. She was always asking me how my research was going. She knew I was trying to develop an antibiotic to cure Dad's deadly disease. It wasn't easy, though, because the body's immune system attacked the antibiotic and destroyed it before it could destroy the diseased cells. I had to discover a neutral substance that the immune system wouldn't attack, so that the drug could penetrate into the body far enough to find and destroy the disease cells via chemical interactions. My first research paper was rejected, but I kept trying, and with each attempt, I would discover something new. During that time, Margot was also busy with her work. One day, she called me. She was crying because she had been fired from her work. They accused her of stealing an important research. I told her that she was so proficient in her work that she should not be sad, but rather should try and get a job at my company. I told her that I would recommend her to my manager. She hugged me and thanked me a lot, and said, "You really are the best friend ever, Sherry." The next day, I told my manager about Margot, and said that she was looking for a job and was waiting outside. He interviewed her and gave her a job. I was so happy now. She and I were working at the same company. Margot continued asking me about my research, and I gave her occasional updates. I was hesitant to tell her too much, but then again, she was my best friend after all, so I invited her to my home to tell her about my research. Margot wasn't as happy as I thought she would be to hear about my progress, but I figured that was because of her recent firing. My personal research took all my time. It was even more important than my work. One day, when I reported to work, my manager told me that they didn't need me anymore, that I was being let go, fired. I was shocked and asked why. He said that I was spending too much time at home doing my private research and too little time at work. He told me he had had several letters delivered to my home, instructing me to come back to work, and that I hadn't answered him, and that I had failed to come back to work. He told me that my roommate, Margot, had received the letters on my behalf, and had promised to deliver them to me. I was shocked. I told him that she never said anything. Returning home, I confronted Margot and asked why she didn't deliver my boss's letters to me. She acted so apologetic and said that she had received the letters, but she had been so busy that she put them aside and forgotten about them. I forgave her, but I felt that she wasn't being completely honest with me. I brushed it off and told her that being fired would simply free up my time so I could spend more time on my private research. Days later, Margot called me and asked me to come celebrate with her. When I asked her what the occasion was, she said that she had gotten a promotion and taken my place at work, my former job. I was happy for her, but at the same time, I felt that there was something wrong with these circumstances, and that feeling seemed to be growing. Time passed, and my experiments finally met with success. I had succeeded in finding the drug that could destroy the diseased cells. I was over the moon. Dad would have been so proud of me. I called Margot and told her about my discovery, and she said, "Oh, Sherry, you did it! You discovered the cure!" I told her that I planned to present my research to another pharmaceutical company soon, one that was better than my previous one, the one that had fired me. She acted happy for me, but had a strange look on her face. Then I felt sleepy, and I said good night. She said she would be staying up for a while, so I just went to sleep. When I woke up the next morning, I found my research area in shambles, and my research data was missing. I woke Margot up and told her that someone had stolen my research last night. She said that's not possible. Who else knew about your research besides you and me? And I said, maybe it was my former manager. Maybe he had somehow guessed that I had made a breakthrough. I don't know. I called the police and reported the break-in and theft of my research data, but they couldn't find any evidence as to who the culprit might be. I returned to my home country disappointed and dejected. I got another job at a company near my house. Many months had passed. I wasn't in touch with Margot anymore. We kinda lost contact somewhere along the way. Then, one day, Mom was watching TV when she suddenly saw a program that was going to discuss a new drug that would treat and cure Dad's malignant disease. They were going to interview the discoverer of the miracle cure. I sat down enthralled. I had to watch it. When the interviewer introduced the guest speaker, it was Margot. I couldn't believe my eyes. It was her. She stole my research. My so-called best friend betrayed me, and I had treated her like a sister. It cut me deep. I took legal actions against her and got my research back and received credit for finding the cure, so that was all okay. But the one thing that could never be fixed, for which there was no cure, was the former relationship between us. She had stabbed me in the back and destroyed my faith in humanity, and I don't think I could ever find a cure for that. Drastic and dire situations create heroes. No one makes history unless their story is inspiring or involves great pain and suffering, overcoming many obstacles and hardships. No one achieves glory without believing in themselves and their abilities, or at least, that's what I think. Sometimes your path to making history doesn't quite go according to plan. My story is a great example. I'm Joanna. I'm 21 years old. I live with my parents and my little sister Veronica. My father was a police officer. He was very brave. He was my idol. He believed in justice and sacrificed anything to see it done. One of my life goals was to be like him. I loved to see him in his uniform. I viewed him as a hero of sorts and believed the old adage that good always triumphs over evil. Unfortunately, that rosy affirmation doesn't always hold true in real life. My father's work used to keep him terribly busy. Nevertheless, he took a few hours off on Veronica's birthday so he could be there with us. Halfway through the party, Dad's work called and told him that a thug was holding a group of nursery kids hostages, demanding a large sum of money and a means to escape the scene. Dad had to leave to deal with the situation, so he excused himself, telling us that duty calls. We were used to seeing Dad dash off suddenly at various times to deal with crimes in progress, but something felt uneasy about that particular time. Dad arrived at the scene just when his colleagues were preparing to charge into the building at significant risk to the kids. Dad volunteered to enter alone to take out the criminal before anyone got hurt. He sneaked into the building and engaged the hostage taker in a gunfight. He managed to kill the thug, but was seriously wounded. He died days later. The whole police department and the city were saddened by his loss. They held a memorial service for Dad. This senseless crime and the loss of my dad galvanized me to enroll in the police academy. Mom tried her best to dissuade me, but I refused to budge. I passed the entrance exam and worked my way through it. It was a challenging program that required diligence, persistence, and patience. The training was quite difficult at first, with very few breaks, and everyone else was intelligent and competitive. In fact, I began to doubt if I could keep up with them. But then I dreamed of Dad hugging me and telling me that I was his hero, and that he would always be at my side. When I woke up the next morning, I felt somehow different, more confident, more resolved to succeed. I worked even harder, and my instructors noticed and acknowledged my extra effort. I made friends, who soon gained confidence in my abilities. My grades improved considerably. Graduation day came, and I anxiously waited to see what my first assignment would be. I was ready to tackle crime, to fight for justice, for all. Unfortunately, my first assignment was as a traffic cop. I was disheartened to see my peers get more prestigious positions, even though I had higher grades than they did. Dejected, I went home and told my mom. She encouraged me and told me that everyone had a job to do and should do it to the best of their ability. Rewards would come in time. She said she appreciated the work of traffic cops, who kept city traffic flowing smoothly during accidents and other abnormal situations. Her words helped me to accept my situation. Regardless, the work was boring, and I still envied my peers for their more important and more glamorous assignments. Life's just not fair. But remember those dire situations I mentioned earlier? Well, during one of my traffic control days, when a traffic light had failed, I noticed two black cars idling in front of a bank in a no parking zone. Initially, I thought it was the bank manager or some other VIP stepping into the bank for a quick stop. I turned my attention back to my traffic control and waved the cars waiting in the left turn lane to proceed to turn left. Then, I looked back at the bank and noticed that a man had gotten out of one of the black cars and stepped over to speak with a bank guard, standing outside the bank. Suddenly, he struck the guard and knocked him unconscious. Then the cars emptied as a group of masked men exited and rushed into the bank. These actions all occurred in quick succession. An armed robbery was in progress. I called the police station on my radio and reported the incident. The police quickly showed up and took the waiting car drivers into custody. The masked men had no choice but to remain inside the bank with the customers as hostages. They were trapped. They threatened that if they weren't let go free with the money, they would blow up the bank and kill all the hostages. My father's life and death scene played across my mind like a movie rerun. I watched the policemen discussing what to do. I felt that I knew more about these city blocks than they did, because I spent many hours every day plying these streets, directing traffic. So I volunteered to enter the bank alone. Since this was my beat, I knew that the bank had a secret entrance that the criminals couldn't have known anything about. Thanks to my police training, I was able to easily pick the lock on the secret door and sneak in through the back. I saw two hallways, one to the left and one to the right. I decided to take the one on the left. I expected that the right one would lead me to the lobby, where the criminals were holding the hostages. As I moved stealthily, I heard a noise and discovered that I had reached the lobby instead. There were 4 masked men watching the hostages, who had been tied up. Then, I spied a bomb in the midst of the hostages. These guys were definitely serious. One of the hostages spotted me, and I gestured to him not to speak or look at me. Unfortunately, one of the thugs had already noticed the hostage looking in my direction. He looked over and saw me. I fired and hit him in the shoulder. I knew the shot would cause the other policemen to rush in, so I needed to distract the masked man quickly. One criminal was holding a hostage in front of him, and he told me he would kill her if I didn't put my gun down. I lowered my gun to the floor, stood up, and raised my hands. All the masked men were watching me with their backs to the main entrance. Just as I was about to get shot,